speak to the audience rather than to go through lots of questions. So the floor is yours.
Basically, just hold it down.
Good evening, everybody. I'm delighted to be here with you, and I want to thank you for the invitation. I'm Muriel Bowser. I represent Ward 4 on the Council of the District of Columbia. I am in my 5th year on the council. I was elected in 2007, I should say, re-elected in 2008. And in April, the residents of Ward 4 really delivered for us an incredible victory in the Democratic primary. I was very proud that 2 out of every 3 voters that went to the polls said I should go back to the council to continue to represent Ward 4. I think they did that because we have a real record of delivering results in our ward. The residents of Ward 4 told us very clearly we should stay focused on school reform. We should stay focused on renovating and revitalizing our corridors. And we should stay focused on the types of quality of life issues that make life in Ward 4 what we want, and that make life in the District of Columbia what we want. So that means we're taking care of our public facilities, we're building new parks and recreation centers, we're making sure that we're working with Chief Kathy Lanier so public safety is exactly where we want it in our neighborhoods. We're never satisfied with any crime, but in 5 years we've seen homicides plummet, crimes with guns plummet, and all of the types of crimes that when you look to see what's happening in a neighborhood are all going down in the right direction. By the numbers, we're doing the types of things we want to do in our ward. We see our population growing. We see our housing prices holding. Our schools are improving, and people feel a sense of pride about their neighborhoods that make living in Ward 4. People have the sense of pride that they've had for decades and decades. I've been privileged in my 5 years on the council to have opportunities for leadership in the public services and consumer affairs, where we made sure that we were holding the utilities and the other public services accountable. I've had the opportunity to lead over libraries like the one we're in, and parks and recreation centers. And most recently, I chair the Committee on Government Operations. That's 19 agencies, a huge budget, including the Department of General Services, which has responsibility for making sure that all of our buildings, including schools and parks and rec centers, are built according to our standards and making sure DC residents are employed. I know we're going to have a lot of time to discuss ethics reform in the District of Columbia, and I'm very proud of my role in working with my colleagues on the City Council to put in place, for the first time since Home Rule, comprehensive ethics reform that puts in place an independent ethics commission, make sure that we have a real open meetings law, and make sure that all public officials are being held accountable and everybody knows what the rules are.
Apparently 3 minutes have passed.
I know, I could talk for a long time. So let me just say this in closing, that this year, and we heard from some of the candidates previously, and I agree, there are more things that we have to do. We're going to stay focused in the next several months on real campaign finance reforms, on freedom of information procedures, and the like. And I'm willing to work with you. I know we've differed on some issues, but I have learned a lot from the research that you have done and the opinions that you've brought to the council. And so I'm looking forward this time to your endorsement and continuing, and that's a request, by the way, Jerry, and working with you in the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just a couple of quick, easy questions from your before we turn it over to Phil. You now represent the council on the Metro Board. there's a growing perception, maybe it's not growing, but there is a perception that Metro is in crisis. How do we address this?
I think Metro is coming out of a crisis. I think the crisis, and I'll tell you exactly when we knew we were in a crisis, when I stood over a bridge about a block from my house, and we had 8 people dead on the red line. That's a crisis. What's happened since then is that there's been new management, overhaul of the board and procedures, and an intense infusion of capital dollars to invest in a system that was the darling baby of the nation for a long time. But now it's a darling that has some creaks, and some serious creaks, and it takes millions of dollars to fix them. I think we're moving in the right direction. I'm never satisfied when we have any failures on the system, but I am being there on the board, in the meetings, hearing the reports for the National Transportation Safety Board. I can say that we're on the right track in improving the safety culture of the system and its actual infrastructure.
Quick question on campaign finance. Do you favor prohibiting contractors from contributing to candidates for public office?
I favor full disclosure of any campaign contributions. So I think that we'll have a number of proposals on the table. The mayor has talked about introducing a bill. I don't know if we actually got it. It hasn't come down. It hasn't come to the committee. And so there are a number of things that we can consider. Obviously, people are concerned about pay-to-play culture in the District of Columbia, and even a hint of a pay-to-play culture in the District of Columbia. We can get at it, and we have to be very practical about some of the proposals that are out there as well, because the last thing that we want is to set up an honest business who's trying to participate, or an honest council member who's trying to participate according to the rules. So in some cases, we'll need to draw clear lines. And so we'll have a hearing on this notion of completely barring contractors. But let me tell you why it's practically problematic. Because you might say to somebody, you can't take a contribution if you have a contract. Well, maybe you're going to have a contract in a year, or you're going to have a contract in 2 years. So where's the cutoff? Maybe you say, maybe you have a $10,000 contract. Is that the same as having a $30 million contract? So these are the types of questions we're going to want to explore in the hearing.
And one last question. Do you believe in preferential tax treatment? Rather, do you believe preferential tax treatment is an effective means of promoting jobs and economic growth?
Are you asking about incentives? Is that what you mean by preference?
Yes.
Yes, I do believe that strategic incentives to invest and attract business is important. You see it in the municipalities all across this region. Let me just give you an example. I spent many years working in Montgomery County, 10 years in downtown development, transportation planning, and downtown Silver Spring. Some of you will remember what downtown Silver Spring looked like, right? Who does? Who remembers that? I remember that. Okay? And so County Executive Doug Duncan said, we're going to transform downtown Silver Spring. So he went to Annapolis, he got a bunch of money, and they moved Discovery Communications, which really is the company that really jump-started the redevelopment of downtown Silver Spring. Sometimes governments, when they're smart and strategic, they'll do that, and it'll work out.
And sometimes not?
And if they're not smart and strategic, it will be a gift. And I don't think we should be in the business of giving money to corporations, but making strategic investments that will bring more jobs, more companies to that area, more shoppers, more dining. That's revenue.
Okay, thank you very much, Muriel. Appreciate it. Our final guest for the evening is Council Chair Phil Mendelson. Delighted you could be here with us tonight, and you get to be the person to close the show tonight. So you can take up to 5 minutes, and then I'm going to have 4 questions.
But you don't have to.
You don't have to. Not exceeding 5 minutes.
Is there a timekeeper, by the way?
Right here.
So you would hand up the...
She'll tell you when you've exhausted your first 4.5 minutes if you get that far.
5 minutes is a long time.
It is.
Well, if you fall off your seat, or you're falling asleep, I'll know that 5 minutes is up. Thank you all for being here, and thank you, DC for Democracy, for having this forum. I think this is the first significant forum, at least with this fall's elections. As you know, I only entered the race after Tommy Brown resigned in June, so I'm in the special election in November. I want to thank DC for Democracy. I also want to thank you for your advocacy over the years on progressive issues. Most recently, a letter that I received from, I think from you, Jerry, with regard to the capital gains proposal that the mayor had submitted, that the council took out of the legislation. This was a reduced tax, I think on the kind of the trickle-down theory approach, that if we reduce the tax for individuals, then that will stimulate business development, and I don't agree with that. And so I appreciate your advocacy on that issue. Many of you know who I am. I was first elected to the city council in 1998. Before that, I've been an ANC commissioner for 20 years, so I have a lot of grassroots in my bones, and I've tried to be true to that history, my history, since I've been elected to the council. I have a reputation as a progressive member of the council. For the last 7 years, I have chaired the council's